Hey, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Morning Route podcast. I'm your host, Shane Johnson, and we are joined this morning by a very special guest, Bethany Bertram from Trobec's bus service. So welcome, Bethany.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate you coming down. A little bit of about 2 hour drive for
Yeah,
you.
not too bad.
All right.
I'm
No,
excited. This is my first podcast, so it's kind of fun to break into this world.
and you're already doing great. So there
Thanks.
you go. I very much appreciate you coming down and taking the time here this morning. I think we got some ground to cover here that I hope our folks find very interesting and educational here this morning. So before we get started, then, why don't you take some time, introduce yourself, who you are, who you're with, like I
Sure.
said, and your title, position, all that good
Yeah.
stuff.
So as Shane said, my name is Bethany. I'm with Trobec's bus service. A little Easter egg. When this episode airs, I think that we'll be able to officially announce that I'm CEO and co-owner of Trobec's bus service. My sister and I in March will be dotting the I's, crossing the T's to make everything finalized. We're really excited for this
Awesome.
next journey for us.
That is awesome. Great news. And yeah, I can't wait for the show to drop and everybody hears that exciting news.
Yeah, it
So
will be exciting.
big congratulations to
Thank
you
you.
guys. So, president, owner, all that good stuff's happening. I'm going to guess maybe favorite title that you have is maybe mom.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
How is baby and how's everything?
She's awesome. She'll be a year old on March 10th, which is just amazing. I'm like, how fast a year goes.
Yeah.
I always, prior to being a mom, thought of a year in terms of school years and thought that flew by. Oh my gosh, this first year with her went even faster.
Yeah.
It's my absolute favorite thing.
Awesome. Yeah, I figured as much, right? Yeah. Being called mom and dad is the best thing ever.
It is.
Replaces the other stuff. So that's for sure. So why don't you tell us your introduction to the school bus world? How did that come about? How many years ago and your journey to where you're at?
Kind of an interesting story that a lot of people don't know about me, but my mom and dad were both school bus drivers back in the day. And that's actually how they met. They worked for Reichert's bus out of Brainerd, got married, and my mom was still driving bus for them. And we lived way out in the country. So I would ride the bus to daycare with her in the morning because her bus would be at our house. She'd pick me up in the afternoon from daycare in the bus. So I started in the school bus industry really young. It's kind of just been with me all along, but I really started my sophomore year of college. I needed a job during Christmas break. I was kind of bored, and my dad was like, well, I need a detailer. We just bought this other bus company, so we need these coaches cleaned. And I was like, sure, I can do that. So 3 days I sat with a toothbrush detailing coaches, and 16 years later, here I am.
Here we are.
Yeah.
I think that is a story of so many, is you start off in the wash bay, right?
Yeah.
And you just progress your way through the years. But there is truly something to be said for that, right? Because you know what it is, what it's about, what it takes,
Right.
all of that. So you can share those stories with maybe a new employee and say, hey, I've been there, done that. And I think that speaks volumes when people,
Yeah.
hey, I've been there. I used to do that. So I know what it's like,
One thing I always tell my team is I will never ask you to do something I won't do or haven't done. And I actually mean that because I've done all the positions. They'll see me driving, they'll see me assisting on a bus. Thursday this week, I need to go train in new detailers. And so I'm not afraid to get back out in the wash bay. If we need weekend help, I'll go in, wash buses. I think our team sees that, and they see that out of my sister and I and our entire leadership team, and they really respect that.
Yeah. So there's something to be said for that when you just model what it takes to get it done. What does your team look like? Who are your, I won't say key players, but your key players that help you make it go?
Yeah, we really wouldn't have made it through this last year without our team. We have an incredible team. So it's my sister and I. She really leads our sales charter division mostly, but she has a hand on the school bus division of things too. Dan Jacobs is my right-hand man. He's our director of operations, and he's a doer. So I'm like the visionary. I'm like, hey, I see this. I want to do this.
Yeah.
And he makes it happen. And I'm like, I haven't even had time to finish that thought, and you're already working on it, which I love.
Yeah.
And then we have Tracy Opatz, who's our director of routing. So she oversees all of our school bus contracts, all the drivers, the routing, that sort of thing. We have a student behavior specialist, Carrie, dispatcher, Vinny, who both of them are amazing. And then Joe leads our sales team, and Sydney leads our recruiting. That, along with a few people in safety, Chad, Aaron, in our shop, is our full-time staff.
Okay. And then about how many folks do you have then, like drivers, paras, your whole team?
We have about 100 drivers and 35 employees that fill the rest of the roles.
All right. Yeah, no, appreciate you walking us through that picture of Trobec's bus service for our folks. How about districts that you currently serve?
Sure. So we are in the St. Cloud School District and the Sartell School District.
Okay.
Are really proud of our contracts there. We've been in St. Cloud since 1956.
Okay.
And Sartell since 1964.
So you know the streets pretty well.
Yeah,
at this
we
point,
got a good
right?
handle on them.
Tell us, what do you enjoy most about, I know you do coaches too, but maybe focus a little bit here on the school bus side. What do you enjoy most about the school bus work?
I love the kids, right? Like that's what we all say, but like you can make such a difference. Sometimes I'll have a conversation with a driver and they're struggling with something and I'm like, "But do you know the impact you make?"
Mm,
And they don't realize that. And then I'll say, "Who was your bus driver growing up?"
right.
And they remember it, right? I still see kids now and they're like, "You were my bus driver when I was in 3rd grade." And I was like, "Why do you remember that?" But they
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
So you stick with them and you get to make an impact. Right now I just sub, so I get to hop around, right?
Right.
Which is fun because you see so many kids and different walks of life. It's the best.
Yeah, it truly is. And you hear that story a lot too, which is a great story, right? The impact that a school bus driver truly does have
Yeah.
on kids, especially that morning one. A lot of times it's the first face that they see, and getting that high five. Kids remember 10 years later
Right.
that interaction that you had with them. So our drivers play a very important role
Yeah.
in
They
kids'
really,
lives.
really
Yeah,
do.
yeah.
And so many families are dependent on our school bus drivers and
Mhm.
paras. I just want them to always know how important their role is. Not every day is sunshine, but we try to walk away making sure that they're leaving feeling good
Right.
because you got to come back and be that positive influence the very next day.
Yeah, so much truth to that. How about the flip side to that, Bethany? What do you maybe not enjoy, or I just really don't like this part of it? Is there anything within that?
So I think just like staff in general is
Yeah.
tough, like having enough people, making sure everything's covered because this job is so dependent. We aren't transporting packages. Your packages can't come tomorrow because Amazon doesn't have enough delivery drivers today. These kids have to get to school
Right.
today. And so that puzzle piece of making sure you have enough people
Right.
to get everyone where they need to be is so critical, but it's challenging. And so while it is a challenge, it can be fun too, but I think that's the tough piece for a lot of people.
Yeah, and you're probably hitting on that point of the driver shortage, right? A little bit of, again, so many people, I mean, literally millions of people in Minnesota every day are dependent on the yellow school bus to show up, right?
Right.
And without having good, safe, qualified drivers in that seat, it makes it very complex.
It does.
A lot of times, most days go okay. Some days do not go
Right.
okay, right? It's that puzzle, like you said.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's challenging. I think after 2020 was when we really saw
Mhm.
industry nationwide, the shortage happen. And I feel like I'm starting to hear companies are pulling out of that a bit, which is great.
Mhm.
But I don't think anybody's ever going to say, we have enough staff. If we have enough staff, then what other trips can we take on? How can we grow? That's what I'm challenging my team to. If we've got everything filled, what's next? And we
Yeah.
want to just keep going after it.
Yeah, I would concur with that assessment that I don't think we're ever going to be fully staffed. I don't think that's realistic at
Yeah.
this point.
And is
So,
any industry right now, everybody's facing those
yeah,
challenges.
yeah, there's definitely a shortage of workers out there, probably a greater shortage of really qualified folks out there that industries are looking for. So, yeah, makes it
Yeah.
complex. I think we're all fighting for that, 5% maybe,
Right.
so
Yeah.
that makes it difficult every single day.
It really does.
Speaking of, maybe not difficult, but complexity, what is the picture of running both school bus and a motor coach side? What does that look like day to day for you guys?
So I think if you ask dispatch and sales and routing,
Hmm.
they would say it's a little bit of like Beauty and the Beast effect, right? Because like sales wants to book everything. Dispatch needs to find enough drivers, but to find enough drivers needs to pull from the school bus side.
Okay.
So we have this tug of war
Yeah.
almost, but it's really cool. And it gives our drivers other opportunities. It gives them advancement,
Sure.
growth in their career. We have, some coach drivers who are making high five, low six figures. Like you
Okay.
can really make a nice career out of
Very
this
nice.
if you commit yourself to it.
Right.
And so being able to show people this pathway that this is available as a career for you, it is really cool.
So, what does it look like? Does somebody start on the school bus side and go to motor coach
Yeah.
or?
So typically, if you don't have any commercial driving experience, you're going to start in a school bus. Our insurance company really wants to see 3 years accident free, incident free.
Okay.
And then we also are just looking at like, are you a good employee? Calling in sick all the time, not showing up, being late, those things don't really fit our mold of
Sure.
what a motor coach operator looks like. You have to decide if that's the path you want.
Right.
How are you going to be able to prove yourself?
Okay.
But a lot of people, it's a great stepping stone. They'll start as a school bus and then they can go back and forth, right? So
Right.
maybe Tuesday they drive a motor coach, Thursday they're driving an activity bus, and Friday they're in a route, perhaps.
Okay.
So we have people that are that flexible, which is really cool.
That's nice to have those folks.
Yeah.
So, going back just a minute ago, sometimes there's a tug of war. When that happens, do you have to put on the referee shirt?
Honestly,
This is priority.
not very often. I
Okay.
mean, our team, they get along really well.
Okay.
And so they just work together to figure it out. So our dispatcher, he'll be like, well, if I pull this driver, I can get this driver to do this. And he works with routing and I'm like, this is the busiest day in our history and you don't need me to drive a bus today. They're like, no, we're covered.
We
I'm
got
like,
to figure it out.
it's amazing.
Is that great when the team figures it out?
It is.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah.
It's not a joke, but I say it in a very jokingly way with some of my folks. If you guys can't figure it out and I have to get involved, then there's a winner and a loser.
Yeah. And we don't want that.
No, we don't want that. And it's great because then they'll figure it out, right? And everybody
everyone's
wins.
happy.
Yep, everybody
Yeah.
wins. So
Yeah.
that's what you want is good people, figure out the problem, the solution,
Right.
and moving forward with that.
Right.
So I think we're all wanting to forget COVID, but it's still there, a piece, right?
Yeah.
It kind of still lingers for some of us. How did COVID affect you guys there at Trobec? So, because I know the school bus side was definitely a little bit different than the motor coach side. So,
Yeah.
are you guys out of that yet? Or still feeling remnants of that?
No, I'd say we're out of it. The business is definitely back. When it all happened, I remember we had a really large contract in Montana for Montana State University. And they canceled. We were supposed to leave Saturday and they canceled the Wednesday before. And I just remember our dispatch board, everything turning red, cancel, cancel, cancel. I just remember sobbing like,
Wow.
this was all of our revenue for the month. What are we going to do? Right. And then it kept getting worse and worse. And then by that weekend, the governor had announced schools were shutting down and it was really scary. And then this is a piece probably not a lot of people know, but the first Monday school was shut down. I woke up that morning and I was like, gosh, like my left hand is numb, my right leg is numb, something's weird, but I didn't have a choice to think twice about it because I felt like our business was falling apart, right? Mind you, January 1st of 2020, my dad had said, I'm stepping back. I'm no longer involved in the day-to-day.
Wow.
You girls are running this. And so we're 3 months in.
Oh, wow.
Running this business, and now we're trying to figure this out. So there was a lot of stress and a lot of pressure, but by the following weekend, I could barely walk. I couldn't move my arm. I'm like, what's wrong? Went to the ER. Long story short, they said, we found 11 lesions on your brain. You have MS. So now I'm trying to run a business, figure out what to do with staff, figure out how to pay bills, and dealing with this major medical thing. And I was so sick and in and out of the hospital. We got through all of it, and I'm so lucky. I have a great medical team now, but it was really challenging to navigate all of that.
No, that's really heavy.
Yeah.
To just hearing that, but I can't imagine in the moment of all of that. Again, like you said, just 3 months into it,
Right.
all of that happening,
Right.
and coming out the other side like you have. That's an amazing story.
Yeah. We look back at it now, and well, I'm not thankful. COVID was really challenging, and I wish we didn't have to go through it. However, the lessons we learned as young future business owners, leaders, whatever you want to call it, those are things that I think will stick with my sister and I till the day that we die.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't ever want to have to do that again, but the lessons probably made a lot of us just better at what we do.
Stronger.
Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, hey, we got through that. This is nothing.
Right.
So we got this.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, just again, that positive mental attitude that we can bring from that.
Absolutely.
I still don't want to do it again.
No, I don't either. I'm out on that.
Okay. All right. We'll completely shift gears then away from COVID. Let's talk about this piece. One of the things that we left out at the beginning, another title that you have is president of the Minnesota School Bus Operators Association.
Yeah.
And you have time left with that role. I think you're through June
Yes.
of this year yet. So you still have time. Maybe the next time we sit down, you might have a different answer.
Sure.
But what, say 18 months that you've been doing it, what's your biggest achievement so far? Like, hey, I'm really proud of this piece.
The MSBOA is an association that I just really, truly love. When I took over as president, everything was just kind of dropped in my lap, right? And it was like, here's 70 years of history, and there's no SOP, there's no KPIs, all the things we use to measure the success of our business or we'd hand to the successor. I didn't have that. So I kind of had to throw things at the wall and start to figure out, how do I run this association? What do I need to do? And so it's been really challenging, but I'm just really proud of our 75th anniversary conference 2 summers ago. And we were able to bring back like a lot of our history and past members who are maybe no longer involved in the industry, but made such an influence in the school bus industry. They were able to attend the conference. Our membership team has created a new structure for dues that I think makes things not as complex and helps us grow our membership, honestly. So I'm proud of that. And then just the work the board has done. I've seen the board step up in tremendous ways. We've supported each other through these transitions, and it's been really, really neat.
Yeah, I can speak into that just for full disclosure. I'm on the board with you. I will say it's really an honor to serve with you on that. And I've watched a little bit from afar here too. I think you've done an incredible job. You're kind of handed an issue, maybe, right?
Yeah.
And so Let's kind of clean up on aisle 7 a little
Right.
bit. The work's not done yet.
No, it's not. And
But
there's a lot of work to do, but I appreciate you saying that.
Yeah.
My husband's like, I didn't know MSBOA would consume more of your time than your actual work, right?
Yeah.
And it was fine prior to having a baby, but now that we have a baby, it's like I'm trying to juggle home and the association and my business, and it's a lot, but I really do love it. And I want to see this association grow and be successful. And I really do think there's a bright future. We have great people coming up in our leadership roles that are going to continue to carry us through. And
Yeah.
we want to not only continue to stabilize, but we want to grow and
Yeah.
add more member benefits and make it to a point where people can't afford not to be a part of our association because it's so valuable, the information they're getting, the resources they
Right.
have. So that's really our long-term goal.
Yeah, and maybe that's kind of the question I had here next, and you're probably answering it, is like, if you had just one piece, like, hey, I really want to accomplish just one more thing before June.
Yeah.
Maybe that's it right there.
So something that's been in my brain is we have our 2 conferences every year, January and June. But how do we put information out more sporadically, whether it's webinars or in-person, like networking sessions or something like that? So I'd love to be able to put something in place where we're offering our members more information, whether it's on up and coming legislation, new laws, grant funding, stuff like that, talking to OEMs about what the future of school buses are, things like that. I
Right.
really see big member benefits in that.
Yeah. That taps into a guest we had just last week at our conference that was maybe challenging us a little bit as a board, is that added value,
Right.
right? And you're speaking to that. What is that added value, or the value of being a member of MSBOA? I think you're hitting all of those topics that you just said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I truly believe if people aren't getting value out of something, they're not going to be a part of it.
Right.
And I don't want you to be a part of something you're not getting value out of. So making sure that we are getting members what they need, and,
Yeah.
and maybe they don't even know what they need, but giving them more than what they could
Yeah.
even imagine. That's the end goal.
Yeah, one thing that might speak to Palmer Bus Service, like, hey, wow, that's really good to know that affects us. Maybe at Trobec is like, we kind of already knew that, or we don't, that's not a big stake here, right? So
Yeah.
it can always fluctuate a little bit too, but doesn't matter. It's getting the information out there to the members, and just like, here it is, right?
Right. And they can do with it what they wish.
Right. Yep. No, I think that's great. Something we can work on then.
Yeah,
Right. So there we
absolutely.
go. Like, give us a goal. How about just generally, just overall, if you had, the genie in the bottle, what are like 2 or 3 things, like, you know what, I just would really love to change this in the industry? Like, if you just could
So
rub that bottle and
yeah, I feel like bus drivers get a bad rap, and I don't know why. I would love to change that perception. I think about that all the time, even from kids. They don't view bus drivers all the time as somebody they look up to or respect.
Right.
Being able to change that would be really, really neat.
I never thought about that.
Yeah.
But you're right. I think the word that you used, I would 100% agree with, is respect.
Yeah,
There's like a lack of respect. We're talking very generally, but
correct.
we're probably pretty close.
It's
I don't
just
know how you would go about doing that.
no, it
Something to
starts
that.
in a bigger level than in your
Mhm.
own community, I think, right? One of the things, because of the perception that our industry's been faced with, that MSBOA, along with MAPT, which is the school district side
Mhm.
of the buses owned in the state of Minnesota, created School Bus Driver Appreciation Day on February 19th, which is going to be a little bit past after this is out, but we're having our 9th annual one, and it's such a fun day. Every morning, it's all over the news. I have tears in my eyes. I'm so proud because we're giving the attention on a statewide level to just show the appreciation we have for the drivers and the hard
drivers.
work they do. We call them like our humble heroes because they don't look at themselves as heroes. But if parents really stop to think about, like, if my bus didn't show up today, how that would impact me, I think they would think they're a hero for showing up every day and being there on time.
Yeah, totally agree with that. And it's something Garrett and I talked about on the podcast that'll be coming out here soon too, was that piece of the drivers. Really, every day should be Bus Driver Appreciation
should.
Day, but so grateful for the one
Yeah.
that we do to really spotlight our
Yeah.
folks. For me, a word that jumps out to me, and I don't like to hear people use that, is like, oh, I'm just a school bus driver.
Right.
Like,
Why
no,
do you
there's-
think that way of
right.
yourself? Yeah.
Yeah, there's no just, or I'm just an aide. Like, no, there's no just. But you're right. Like, I wonder, changing that thought process, because just think what would happen if the bus driver doesn't show up.
Right.
It's not just a driver anymore.
No.
It's
And you see it all over. I
Yeah.
just saw it in Texas this week. They were cutting like 270 buses from their district, and all these parents have to figure out how to get their kids to school
Yeah.
because they didn't have staff and they
Right.
didn't have enough funding. That phrase you said, I'm just a bus driver, I'm just a para. we've heard that before. So we took a new initiative in our office this year, and I said, we're doing something for our team every month. Most of it's been involved around food. So we're
Sure.
hosting a lunch. We bring in pizza. During Christmas, oh my gosh, this was so fun. We went to the local bakery and bought I think we bought 17 dozen uniced sugar cookies,
Oh,
and they had
wow.
a cookie decorating day on a Friday in between routes.
Very cool.
People that I never would have thought were in there decorating cookies, eating, like they
Yeah.
had a blast. And so we tried to put an emphasis on, I don't ever want you to feel that way. And so we're putting an initiative in to make sure every single month, like you're celebrated, you're respected. And we know,
Love
I want
that.
you to know we couldn't do this without you.
No, I love that. And it sounds like it's part of your culture,
Yes.
right? And making sure your folks feel appreciated, they're wanted, they're needed, and
It's so
appreciate what they're
important
going out to do every
because it
single
is a
day.
tough job and it's a thankless job. I get it. And I want to thank them and I want them to be proud.
Can't wait for February 19th.
I know,
Like
it's
I
gonna
said,
be
it'll be
great.
past when we do this, but as we're talking here, just a couple weeks away. So
Right.
yeah, pretty exciting. So how about this as an owner, operator, president, MSBOA, a couple things maybe, Bethany, what are some things that we need out of either St. Paul, maybe Washington, D.C. to help our industry?
So I think there's a few things. There was some legislation passed a couple of years ago. I think it was a 2023 session that has been challenging for our industry. The first is earn safe and sick time. And while I don't disagree with it, I think employees have the right to fair time off. A part-time job where you're here in the morning, you have a break, and then you come back in the afternoon, it doesn't seem like the mold fits perfectly for that. So I think
Right.
that needs to be revamped a little bit. We've talked about it in-house a little bit.
Mhm.
When you roll out a policy, you maybe don't get it right
Right.
the first time. So we got to go back and tweak it and re-put it out because you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
The other thing we really struggle with in the state of Minnesota is being able to get drivers tested for their commercial driver's license. So how can we get more third-party testers? How can we be able to test for other people, other districts, those sorts of things? I think that's important. We really need to look at funding, how that's working for school districts. I know all I'm seeing coming out of St. Paul right now is that private transportation is so expensive. But I think what perhaps has been forgotten is these new laws that were put in place have had to increase rates because
Right.
they have to be paid for. And so, of course, there's a cost that comes
Right,
to that.
right.
That money doesn't just come from nowhere.
Right.
So it's challenging.
Yeah, those are all really good points. I think it's something that we've heard from within the industry, the ESST, a piece of it. There's one that's coming January 1st of next year that we have to figure out too with the FMLA
Right.
that's going to be coming out.
Yeah, and I talked to a lot of members and industry people, and they're really nervous for it. This has been rolled out in other states. I think it's been in Massachusetts since 2018, but it did not go well for them. It was really challenging, and I'm nervous to see our members struggle. I don't want them to have to do that. Without some change in the legislation, which I don't think is going to happen
Right.
because it's pretty set in stone, I don't know how we're going to
Yeah,
figure it
no,
out.
it's definitely going to be a challenge. There's no doubt. And I hope maybe some folks that listen to this podcast that are from St. Paul would maybe go, hey, maybe let's sit down with some stakeholders here. And like you said, if we got to adjust some language,
Yeah,
I think in Minnesota anyways, private contractors, what we do probably close to 65%
I think it's right about there. Yeah.
of the transportation for the kids here in the States. So we move a lot of kids
Yeah,
every single day and
we
we have a
do.
lot of businesses here.
A lot of those legislators probably are counting on the bus to
Right.
get their kids to school or their grandkids.
Yeah. So you're right. It's going to have an impact and I think even a greater impact next year.
Yeah.
So again, hopefully we can advocate up in St. Paul. I know we got some things coming up here next week. So it'll be a few weeks past
Yeah.
when this airs that we're headed up to St. Paul to advocate. So
Right.
appreciate Eric Simonson putting that together for us.
Yeah, our lobbyist has been fantastic putting this legislator day together. I used to say, like, I'm not into politics, right? I'm into doing what's best for the industry and for our association. But having relationships with your local legislators, keeping them abreast of what's going on in your industry and in your business is so, so important.
Yeah.
And I think that people think they're intimidating and they don't know where to begin. But a perfect way to begin is by attending like your local or national
Correct.
fly-in days or day on the Hill because they almost break the ice. I remember the first time I flew to DC to do it, I was like shaking, so nervous. And
Yeah.
now I'm like, this is easy.
Yeah.
These people are just like us,
Yep.
right? This is
Yep.
their job and they want to do what's best for their people and their constituents. They can't do everything that's asked of them, but if they hear you out, that's all I ask.
I'm a believer in just asking because the worst can be no,
Yeah.
right? But if you don't ask or advocate for yourself or for your industry, you're probably not going to get anything.
Right.
So you have to go and advocate, which a lot of times means educating, because our elected leaders just don't know. They don't know the ins and outs of our business until we sit down with them and walk them through
And
that.
explain it.
They're passing sometimes legislation, not purposefully, sometimes that really goes against or has a negative impact on your business just because they didn't know.
Right. And I think for those in Minnesota familiar with the Stop Arm Camera grant that came through, that was years of work. And finally, we got to a point where we were able to testify and show some really scary videos of kids narrowly being missed by cars flying through school bus stop
that's
arms.
scary.
And all that work of the years leading up to it, we were able to get, I can't even remember the amount, millions of dollars of funding.
Yeah.
It's making it easier to prosecute those people that are putting children's lives at risk. And so I think that's huge.
Yeah, that was definitely a positive that came out of St. Paul that benefited everybody. And I mean everybody, not just school bus world, but parents, students, right? All of them. Most importantly, the students, right? Protecting them. So that was a huge win, if you will, and a big thank you. I know you and I met with the rep here not too long ago, and we thanked him a few times within that meeting for the work that was done on the stop arm cameras.
Yeah, it was a big deal.
Yeah. So speaking of stop arm cameras, nice segue, just technology overall. You've been around for a while, so you've seen technology really come into the school bus world where I think, again, a lot of years school bus world was way behind.
We don't want to be involved, right?
Yeah.
Keep us out of it.
We don't need cameras or whatever. So what are your thoughts on technology today, but maybe where do you see some things going and maybe even tying that in with AI?
Yeah, so if you're not wanting to get on board with technology, I think you're going to have a hard time.
Yeah.
AI, you hear some people are like, I don't want them knowing my secrets. I don't want them knowing my stuff.
Yeah.
They already do, right?
Yeah.
They have your phone. Everyone knows your browser history. So
Right.
don't worry about that stuff. AI has made us a safer company. I mean, from being able to monitor speeding, idling,
Yeah.
harsh braking, being able to coach these moments that we've never been able to do before, I think it's critical, right? The hardest part is that it's such an investment in your fleet to get the technology on board that maybe by the time you have it installed and working, there's something new and better out there.
Right.
So it's hard to stay moving forward, but you got to keep looking for the next thing because I think it's making us all better.
It is, and I can share this. So last summer, we had a board meeting, and Traven Medawar, one of our board members, I was kind of complaining about AI. And Traven's like, you just need to get on board. And I'm like, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not doing any of this stuff.
Yeah.
And I was just joking with them there last week. I'm like, well, you were right. I said, it only took me 6 months. I'm already on board. You can't fight. It's here. And what ways can you work with it to your advantage? I think that for me, that was like, I got to figure out how to use this that can make me more efficient.
Yeah.
Where I can quickly do this with this resources help, where I can then focus some more time over here. So that's where I found myself with it.
Right. It's a huge time saver, I think. And even new ideas, I'm like, give me a model of a policy like this, or give me a template of this, or write me a month's worth of social media campaigns for Trobec's bus service, right? Pulls everything out. And I'm like, this is amazing. And it did it in 30 seconds where I would have spent maybe 6 hours
Right.
creating a month-long social media campaign.
Yeah.
You can start small. I remember the first post I did, we were like, write a first birthday post for somebody, just being silly, trying to see how it can work. It's like, that's really good.
That's really, yeah.
And now here we are a couple years later, and you should
It's cool.
have Traven on the podcast
Yeah.
to talk about
him.
AI
Yeah,
for
yeah,
people. I think that people would really get a kick out of that because a lot of people haven't started. They don't know where to begin.
It can be. I'm 55, I'm almost 56. I'm at that point where I'm like around the corners, like my exit here, right? Like so there's a little bit of like, do I really want to learn this? Right? I can keep doing my sticky notes. It is scary for my generation.
Yeah.
But I've purposely looked at it like, how can it help me? Right? How
Right.
can I be more efficient? And that's just kind of where I've locked in. I can say I'm probably not going to use it for a lot of its advantages because I'm just not there.
And I don't know, I'm not there completely yet either. What's something that you've used it for that you've been like, wow, that was really neat?
Cleaning up some emails.
Yeah.
It'll help me with some better verbiage.
Sure.
It'll clean it up a little bit. So I use it for that. I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, that sounds a lot better. I'm going to send this one. I have done some research. I just kind of put in a couple keywords. Hey, I'm looking for, whatever, or maybe it's a law or statute, and it'll pull that up for me, find it for me a lot quicker. So I've done some stuff like that. Again, just trying to be a lot more efficient.
Yeah.
versus going back to the encyclopedia,
Right.
back in my day and
Oh my gosh, I
trying to find
remember
all
that
that.
too.
Yeah.
It was funny. I never thought about using AI, and we're kind of getting on a tangent
Mhm.
here, but I never thought about using it for this. Catherine, another board member who works for Schmitty and Sons, we were in DC for a MSBOA national conference, and we had an evening like to ourselves. So we went and walked around the memorials, and she was just like typing in, I don't know if it's ChatGPT or some sort of an AI, like, tell me about this memorial, tell me about this.
Oh, cool.
And it was like we had our own personal tour guide.
That's cool.
And I never would have thought of that. So it was really neat.
I'm going to take that because I'm actually going to go to DC at the end of the month for NSTA.
Oh,
We have our
yeah.
bus in, kind of like you're talking about going
Yeah.
up to the hill to advocate. So I'm going to do that.
It was so
and
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have to.
So here at Palmer, I was using ChatGPT. Our wonderful IT director, Allison, who's sitting to my left, your right, has taken that away from me. So now I'm having
Boo.
yeah, boo. So I'm learning, or she's going to have to teach me Gemini.
Sure.
So we're doing that and I'll be fine with it, but I'm going to need a little work on that.
And
so,
I think, I've dabbled with both. I feel like ChatGPT was what I first used, so that's where I'm comfortable. But Gemini's right there. It's coming up. I don't think it's been out as long, so
Yeah.
maybe not as good, but it's going to be there very soon.
And for me, I know we're beating this up, but it's kind of fun. It's like, man, I learned this and I kind of got it now.
Yeah.
And then Allison's like, no, we got to learn this. I'm like, all right, fine. And
Here we go.
yeah, and I will. And
Yeah.
it'll
It'll be great.
It'll be fine. It'll
Yeah.
be fine. So I have to ask this question because it's a big deal. Electric school buses.
Yeah.
Where's Bethany / Trobecs on the, yeah, I know.
I know. So our superintendent's always asking, are you interested in electric? Is that the way that you're looking? I think I think we will own electric school buses one day. I truly do believe that that's coming. I don't think the infrastructure's there yet.
Yeah.
And the cost point, even with grants, it's a lot. And I think of where we are in Little St. Joe and what we'd have to do to be able to that infrastructure in
Right.
place. It would be extensive.
Right.
But it is the future. I think we're going to see it more and more. Will our fleet be 100% electric? No, I don't see that.
Yeah, that's a pretty tall order. How about on the coach side? What does that look like for motor
So
coaches?
it's kind of similar. Most of the OEMs put some electric motor coaches out within the past few years.
Okay.
They work great in small areas like college campuses where it's warm, things like that. But kind of talking with some of the salesmen, they're kind of seeing it decline. And I think the cost, it's almost double
Ooh,
to buy
ouch.
over $1 million for sure for an electric motor coach right now, which is insane.
I can't even imagine how many years it would take return on investment.
Oh my
for that.
gosh, I know.
Wow.
I can't either.
And
So
then,
there's not a lot of them out there, but I'm in my 30s and I'd like to hope I have a long career yet that we'll see that at some point. We're not right there yet.
my hope is that I have exited the school bus world before it reaches here. That is my plan. If I can just get there before, but I'm withholding judgment that it's really gonna, but
Yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
It's fun to watch though. It's fun to see. And I get right now with the opinion of like, we're not there. So I can look at it kind of through a different lens of
Yeah.
like, I'm not worried about it yet.
No, and again, as we know, the new administration now in DC,
Mm.
it's
Right. What's going to happen?
yeah, I think a lot of people are just really going to sit back here and
Yeah.
see what happens with legislation
Right.
coming out of some of the different departments. So
Yeah.
we'll kind of get on the exit ramp here ourselves here a little bit, but I want to talk about the winter conference that we just had. And just again, your biggest takeaways from our winter conference that we just had last week for MSBOA?
Yeah. So there was a lot. I thought we had a really nice conference. The feedback was really good. We had a great keynote speaker who I feel like we got his book right there.
There you go.
Life Undeferred by Jared Sebesta.
Yeah.
A lot of people maybe recognize that name, but they're like, who is that guy?
Yeah.
He was a meteorologist on Care 11 for many years, and he's off on his own doing his kind of book tour right now. But he talked to us Saturday morning about living your life authentically. And I feel like he really made an impression in my brain of like, if you want something changed in your life, you have to do it.
Right.
And you can't do it for one day and say, oh, it didn't work.
Mm-hmm.
I give up, right? Like, think of it as your job. This is important. I have to commit to this. I have to do this. And I thought it was a really good session for us to have Saturday morning in January, right? Because it's a new year. It's a fresh start.
Right.
We also got our goals in mind. But aside from that, hearing about, I don't know if this is good or bad, but just hearing about what's going on in St. Paul right now for those that are in tune with Minnesota legislation. We've got a mess in
You're putting it very politely.
in our political arena. And then some of the other takeaways, we had some great speakers on like student behavior, Heard a great update from Lieutenant Rue, who
Yep.
was also on this podcast. So that was really cool that you were able to snag him, by the way.
Yeah.
But he always adds a ton of
He
value.
does. Yeah, he does.
So it was really neat. And now we're looking ahead to summer. Like what sessions do we want to have? What haven't we touched on? What's important to our members, you know?
Yeah. The one of the things I like to is important. You took the time, which is always important, to recognize our vendor partners.
Yeah.
Appreciate you doing that because it's hard to have an association without our vendor partners.
They are truly the backbone
They are.
of any association. If you don't have them, you don't have a lot.
Right.
You know, it is important. MSBOA was able to establish a vendor and sponsorship committee this year because we recognize that the partnerships were strained. If I can be blatantly honest, there was so much focus on just keeping the association going forward that piece kind of fell off, and we didn't know how to bring it back. So I went to the board. I said, "This is the idea I have. Why don't we put it back in their lap? They're the experts. They go to all the trade shows. Tell us what you want. Tell us how you want this to work." We did that, and we held a meeting with all the vendors. Some of them joined the vendor committee, which was amazing.
Yeah.
So they can be a part of the decisions going forward.
Yeah, it's a key point. And kind of going back to one of the things said to us last week was added value. And I think that's an added value to us as contractors, having that strong vendor partnership with MSBOA. The more vendors we can have here, the more connections that we can make as contractors and know going, hey, First Light, you know, and what they provide as a service that we can implement some of their safety devices on our school buses. So that's just one, but I don't want to rattle through all of them here and then I'll forget somebody.
Right.
And it's so key to have a strong vendor partnership.
It is.
Appreciate you taking the lead on that.
Thank you. I look at our vendors as, like, if I'm shopping for a new service or something, I start first with the people that are members of the associations that I'm in. If they don't have what I'm looking for, I'll go elsewhere. But 100% of the time, I want to support those people first. And we've really stuck true to that mission because, again, it's just so important.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that was really neat from our winter conference was the technology summit that we had. We had different folks come up from their companies and talk about technology. There was one company in there, I won't name it, but I was like, that's really cool what they're doing.
It is.
And I'm probably going to reach out to them and have a conversation with them.
Yeah, you would never get that opportunity because at a trade show, you get your few minutes to chit chat. But I thought it was a unique perspective for people to be able to see the different companies in this specific technology field that we highlighted this conference. They each gave a 15 to 30-minute spiel, sales pitch, call it. And then we were able to go back and say, like, I want more information from them. I want to talk with them. We're hoping that we get good feedback on that and we can continue it into the summer with what people are looking for.
Yeah, I think it was a great segment to have at the conference. One thing, too, I want to go back to Jared. To me, he was a very unique speaker because there was absolutely nothing school bus or yellow specific, right? It was just about really being a person.
Right.
And there was relationships within that. But one of the things he said that really struck me, and I have a different name for it, and I'll share it in a minute, but he said, be flattered by your challenges. As we've sat here and we've talked, one of the things thinking about that, because I knew this was coming, was going back to your beginning of taking over Trobec.
Yeah.
And how you shared that story 3 months into it. You find out some bad news about yourself that you're going to have to be dealing with. COVID, all of these things, but then it's be flattered by your challenges.
Right. Let them humble you and make you stronger. If you don't look at your challenges in any other light than that, then you're not going to make it through. I mean, I really think it's all about your mindset and the way you look at things because you can choose to not get off the couch every day and you're going to feel like crap. But if you get up and you have a good attitude, and even sometimes in the morning, it's like, oh, we had a tough night. The baby was up all night, whatever. And you're not feeling it. I just need my little drive to work. Need to get in the right groove, listen to some girl boss music, and then I can walk in the door with
you got to listen to the Morning Route podcast. That'll get you going right there.
It gets you going and it changes your mindset. And every challenge that you have, I just think it's there for a reason and it makes you stronger. And
yeah. And I think a lot of us were able to, and it was great that he stuck around for a while. So a lot of us were to go up and thank him and maybe share a quick story with him. And I had the opportunity as well. I shared with him something that hit our family a few years ago with our son, who's 30 now. I think you might know our oldest son, Trace. I believe you've met him. If not, you'll meet him at some point, I think, Bethany. But about 5 years ago, he was diagnosed with a really rare form of cancer.
Oh.
It's really a life-changing event, right? Obviously for him, but even as family, right? You know, mom and dad and brothers and sisters. For me, and I was sharing this with Jared, I looked at it as I have to do something different with me, right? And a couple things I've just changed in my life, trying to eat better, quit drinking, really being purposeful about working out and taking care of myself, right? And within that, one of the things I learned, and it wasn't like a light bulb moment right away, but within this journey that we've been on, taking care of myself, I'm better equipped to take care of others,
I
right?
think that's spot on.
That's come with it, right, over the past 5 years. But I really do believe that, and I take it really serious. I get up in the morning, I have my routine, and it's about taking care of me so I can be a better husband. I can be a better father. I can be a better employee for Jenna and Holly here at Palmer Bus Service. I can be a better supervisor for the folks that come under me. So it's all inclusive. I can be a better friend. And I have really tried that when someone's like, hey, how are you? I like to say, you know what? I'm good because someone has it worse off than me.
Yeah.
To find that place of not complaining.
Yeah.
Uh,
Which is so easy. It's so easy to complain and it's so easy to get lost in the day to day.
mhm.
But yeah, keeping that mindset, I mean, it's critical
Yeah.
for anybody, but especially if you're dealing with something challenging. I could fall into the deepest depression
Right.
if I didn't intentionally think about being positive and making sure that I am having a great day
Right.
every single day.
Yeah. And like I said, I have kind of a different word, and I try not to cuss on the show here and keep it clean for everybody, but I do have a phrase here at Palmer and in my life. I know this, and I'm good with it, that no matter what, one time every single day, there's going to be a shit sandwich, I call it.
Yeah.
And when it happens, I'm like, okay, here it is.
Mm-hmm.
And it's about dealing with it in the most positive way that you can and then just moving on.
Right.
I think that's kind of what Jared said. And I said that to him as well. It's about being flattered by the challenges.
Yeah.
And I always love the ones, because I think we always joke, right? Like when you've seen everything in the school bus world, here it is.
Something
And
else happens. Yeah.
I love those. Like, oh, this is a new one. And figuring that out and fixing it, I love that challenge.
It's like a natural high, I feel like. Yeah.
So figuring that one out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So how about this? We'll kind of get towards the end here for sure now. Walk through why somebody should become a member of the MSBOA.
I think there's a lot of reasons. One of the things for me that is really important that I wouldn't be in the position I'm in today as far as the knowledge I have in our industry is the networking, creating relationships, finding people that do things differently than you. I was wanting to talk to somebody about, tell me how it looks like with a single tier routing. We don't
Okay.
do that. And I'm curious what that looks like for you.
Hmm.
I was able to reach out to another member and have that conversation. I found that the members are there to help you and support you. And maybe if you haven't been through something, they have.
Mhm.
So it's the members. We highlighted the partners of
Right.
the vendors, finding new technology and other product
Right.
offerings out there for you. That's huge. Our advocacy,
Yeah.
getting involved, that's a huge piece of MSBOA. The legal relationship we have with our association lawyer, Tom, he's such a wealth of knowledge
Yeah.
on employment law and making sure that we all stay in compliance,
Yep.
down to like your handbooks, your policies. Anytime we put out a new policy, I'm like, hey, can you read this? Tell me if this is right.
Right.
I want to make sure I'm following the law here. You have a connection to that. As part of your membership, you get 1 hour free a month on the MSBOA hotline to call Tom and have a legal conversation with him. You don't have to be billed for that
Right.
first hour.
Great resource.
So there's a lot of benefits. Then, of course, our conferences, the
Yeah.
information those brings, the member value is strong.
Yeah.
It really is strong.
Thanks for sharing that. And I agree with all those points. We're stronger together.
We are.
If you're not a member, want to really pitch it here this morning. And how do you become a member? What would someone's first step?
Yeah, so go to our website, msboa.com. I believe you can sign up right online. Otherwise, our contact info is on there. Get in touch with our executive office and they'll walk you through the steps. You'll get on our email blast and get registered for the
Awesome.
conference. And even if you're not a member, but you're wanting to check it out and see if
Yeah.
the summer conference is something you would be interested in joining, attend the show,
Mhm.
see what it's all about. And when I first came into this industry, I remember it kind of felt like a good old boys club.
Mm.
I feel like there was like 10 women in the room 15 years ago, and now it's like 50-50,
Right.
which is really cool.
Right.
But it doesn't have the feel that it used to have. Everybody's here to help each other and make new relationships. So it really is neat.
I agree with that. I probably had the same feeling many years ago, even being a guy.
Yeah.
It was kind of like a boys club, but I think it definitely has changed. And I just want to say one more thing about that piece. I believe there's huge value to being a member of MSBOA. So if you're not a member, become a member.
We'd absolutely love that. And I
Yeah.
know you'd find value in it.
Yeah,
you know?
absolutely. So any last thing you would like to share with our listeners before we sign off?
Gosh, I don't know. That's probably the hardest question you've
All
asked
right, all
all day.
right.
Just in general, I'm so proud of the industry that we work in and the people that are a part of the industry. And it's really just been a wild ride these last 16 years. And I'm excited for what the next 16, 20 plus
Yeah.
hold for this industry.
Yeah. I'll be watching from afar at that point. But Bethany, thanks for coming here today. Thanks for your friendship. Thanks for your leadership, MSBOA. Excited for you and your sister here officially taking the reins at Trobec. So you guys are going to do awesome. I'll be cheering for you guys
Okay,
in your
thank you.
success there. So here's the hardest question. This is where we sign off. Morning route is all about coffee,
Yeah.
right? The morning route doesn't happen, as we know, without the drivers getting
Oh,
a cup
no.
or two of coffee before they hit route. But for you, if you had the opportunity to get one person you want to sit down with and just share a cup of coffee with,
Oh,
ask them any question you want. Maybe it's somebody that influenced you from afar. Maybe somebody from way back in history that you read a book on that you find fascinating.
yeah.
So who's your one person?
Gosh. Have you heard of the author Simon Sinek?
I've heard of the name. I
I'm
couldn't tell you the book, though.
fascinated by him.
Okay.
I think he would be a really interesting conversation
Okay.
on leadership and growth.
Okay.
That would probably be like a dream
There you go.
conversation for me.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe he'll allow maybe 2 cups of coffee,
there we
right?
go.
So when you guys sit down. All right. I hope that for you,
Thank
that'll
you.
come to pass. So again, thanks for joining us here today on the Morning Route podcast.
Of course, it's been really fun.
All right.
Thank you.
Okay. Until next time.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks for listening to today's episode. Stay up to date with the podcast by following us on social media. Don't forget to subscribe to the Morning Route Podcast YouTube channel.